Ralph, he was so important all the time. I think every fan, if they don't understand that, should understand that. And if they're not familiar with Ralph's name, just look him up and see all the fantastic work he's done in his career. His body of work is, pretty unparalleled. He's a great guy, and I can't say enough good things about what he's done for me. Just influenced my career where I wanted to be, and pretty much, this entire crew, we owe a lot to him, and we're very grateful to have met him and to follow in his footsteps. If we do so humbly, to try and be as great as he obviously is. So we've actually had Ralph up to the studio to see what we're working on, which I think was, a dream come true for many of the artists working on it, myself included. Again, to go back to when I was a kid, I didn't really know what a concept designer was. I think Ralph would have been the first, concept designer I was even aware of with a name, I had these small art of books. I had never seen an art of book before, and I had the Star Wars one and the Empire Strikes Back one and then the Return of the Jedi one. And, you're just looking at these sketches of, mostly back then, the art of books were filled with stuff that actually didn't make it to screen. And just seeing the way these guys drew, and as a young artist, drawing stuff on my own, understanding that was part of the process, definitely made a huge impact on me. And it's something that I think everybody that's designed on Star Wars, in the prequels, through video games, everywhere, we all have great respect for those original designs that Ralph did. And, his inspiration was, it made it feel like a place very far away that's so close, so everyday. Not everybody was super hopped up on steroids looking. They looked like just regular people in a galaxy far, far away, from the costumes to the vehicles to the environments. And, it's definitely something we aspire to on this series, because to me it is the feel of Star Wars, all the work that he's done. And, we try and respect that the best we can and carry it forward the best we can.
Hey,
now, the inclusion of Ralph's, or at least Ralph-inspired work in the Clone Wars, was that a directive that came from George himself?
It wasn't. It was something that I was really dead set on, and I knew that the designers that I was going to have on the show, Killian Plunkett, that it was something that we all had in common. We loved Ralph's work. And George definitely does too. I mean, George knows what Star Wars looks like, and he, created it, so he has a large hand in that. George is, I think, always the force that pushes us to do more, to kind of go beyond our comfort zone. I think when a lot of the early Clone Wars things you see a lot of things that are so familiar that we were afraid to, try and do new things. It's like that tendency you see in Star Wars material to repeat even stories that have been done before, just in a slightly different form. And George is always the guy to say, no, guys, we got to break out and do more. And he'll push us to go farther and take things that Ralph did that never got used and to use them in a new way or in a different way. But, I mean, I have 2 books in front of me right now of Ralph's work, and just flipping through them, I can just see stuff and go, oh, my gosh, that would look great in this show, And the best thing about Ralph's stuff is, it's already, approved by George. So when we follow that look, it always has an easy pass right through George, because I think they had such a common vision at the end of the day.
Now, you mentioned yourself, Dave, you're a big fan of Ralph's work, and that was something that you pushed to include in the Clone Wars. Is there something that jumps out at you as a favorite Ralph-inspired design that we've seen in Clone Wars Season 1, or in the movie for that matter?
Well, there were a bunch of things that I had always wanted to see, really used in the Star Wars universe. They did a lot of the same things in video games, and I always get a kick out of it when you see it in the world, on Tatooine. There were so many views of Jabba's palace from the illustrated Star Wars universe that never got used, little bridges and little gateways and arches, and we tried to incorporate those in Teth Palace.
Yes.
Clone Wars movie, and I thought that really looked great. And then, obviously the the clone trooper we did, I always loved those concepts of the snow troopers that Ralph had done of the early Hoth troopers.
Yes.
And Russell Chung, again, did a great job at adapting that into our clone trooper and kind of, marry two concepts from Attack of the Clones and Empire Strikes Back. So that's a particular favorite of mine also, the snow clones, because it's a little more of a vintage feel than, you get in the more modern clones. So.
Right, and we saw them in the episode Trespass.
Yeah.
With the
and it doesn't end there. It's so dangerous for me because we're working on season 2 stuff, and there's definitely some stuff in season 2 that are some long time favorite images of mine that were never used in Star Wars that Ralph did that we got to use in season 2 that I'm super excited about. And I guess that's all I can say about it. But yeah, it's just a never-ending treasure of great images. And when George and I sit down to talk about story, and he has some story ideas, and he'll be describing something, it's almost like he must have described a very similar thing to Ralph at one point, because I'll go, well, you mean something like this? And I'll get a book out, and we'll go through a bunch of sketches, and he'll be like, yeah, that would be great.
Hey, this is Dave Filoni, Supervising Director of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to one of my favorite podcasts. In fact, the only podcast I listen to.